quiet road behind a motel in New Jersey looks like nothing. Just space, overgrown grass, and a place people pass without a second thought. But in 2006, that same spot became the center of something no one could explain. For bodies, dumped in the same hidden place. All of them barefoot. All of them left like they were nothing more than objects someone wanted to erase. No clear killer. No clear motive. No obvious connection. Just silence and questions that still hurt today. And here's what makes it even worse. One of the victims was last seen walking away from what should have been a safe place. A moment where she should have been protected, not lost forever. So what really happened behind the Golden Key Motel? And why did it take so long for anyone to understand the truth? And even now, one question refuses to go away. Was this the work of one killer, or something much darker than that? This is the case detectives still talk about in quiet tones. Not because it was loud, not because it made immediate headlines everywhere, but because it was confusing in every possible way. In November 2006, 4 women were found behind the Golden Key Motel in New Jersey. For different lives, for different paths, but somehow the same tragic ending. And the hardest part for investigators wasn't just what they found. It was what they couldn't explain. Nothing about how these women ended up there fully made sense. Not the timing, not the location, not the pattern, nothing. Today, we're going to walk through what happened step by step. And by the end, you'll understand why this case still refuses to close. But first, we need to understand who one of them really was. Barbara Brader didn't start life anywhere near this ending. She grew up in Pennsylvania, in a respected family. The kind of home people would describe as stable, even promising. She was smart. She was funny. Teachers noticed her. Friends trusted her. And for a long time, it looked like she was heading towards something better, something secure. People around her genuinely believed she would go far in life. But slowly, that future started to break. After college, things began to change. At first, it was pain medication. Something that seemed manageable. Something that didn't look dangerous. But it didn't stay that way. Stronger drugs followed. And before long, addiction started to take control of her life. A relationship entered the picture, and instead of pulling her out, it pushed her deeper into heroin use. Bit by bit, the life she once had started slipping away. Jobs disappeared. Stability collapsed. The structure she built her life on just fell apart. And then came the hardest loss of all. She lost custody of her young daughter. Her child was sent to live with family, while Barbara was left trying to survive a life that no longer resembled her own. By 2006, she was living day to day in Atlantic City. No safety, no stability, just survival. And what makes her story even more haunting, she wasn't alone in this kind of downfall. The other women found later shared similar patterns, similar struggles, similar pain, similar roads that led them far from where they started. But the question that keeps hanging over everything is this. How do separate lives, with separate stories, end up in the same hidden place? That's where things start to turn dark. November 20th, 2006. 2 women are walking near a dirt path behind a motel in New Jersey. It's the kind of place people don't usually stop. Quiet, isolated, easy to ignore. At first, they notice something strange near the water. Something that doesn't belong there. They get closer, and what they find stops them cold. A body. Police are called immediately. Officers arrive expecting a single victim. A tragic, but maybe isolated incident. But that assumption doesn't last long. Because as they begin searching the area, the situation completely changes. They don't find one body. They find 4. All placed in a watery ditch behind the Golden Key Motel. All fully clothed. All barefoot. And all showing different stages of decomposition, as if they hadn't arrived there at the same time. Right away, nothing feels random. The positioning is too similar. The location too specific. The way they were left behind feels intentional controlled. But the biggest mystery remains. How they die. Toxicology reports begin to give pieces of the answer, but not the full picture. Drugs appear in multiple victims. Alcohol is found in one. Barbara Brader shows signs of a potentially lethal dose of heroin. But even with all of that, the official cause of death is still unclear for most of them. Even experts are left with gaps they can't fully explain. And then detectives notice something even more disturbing. The victims didn't all die at the same time, which means this wasn't one moment, one incident, one single event. It was something that happened over days, maybe even longer. And that changes everything. Because now the question isn't just what happened. It becomes, why here? And who kept returning to this same hidden spot? As investigators dig deeper, a theory starts to form. And it's deeply unsettling. At first, the drugs in their systems look like possible overdoses. But the more they examine it, the more it starts to feel controlled, almost staged. Some experts begin to believe the victims may have been sedated before they died. Not accidental, not random, but intentional. And then another pattern starts to emerge. The lives of the victims begin to overlap disturbingly. Loss, divorce, addiction, life on the streets, survival in the margins of society. It starts to look less like coincidence and more like selection, as if someone wasn't just finding victims randomly, but choosing them carefully. And then a name surfaces during the investigation. A man connected to the motel during that same time period. He cooperates with police, provides DNA, even takes a polygraph test. But nothing ever leads to charges. Nothing sticks. And just when it feels like the case might finally close. Years later, another serial killer investigation in Long Island causes detectives to look back again. They compare timelines, methods, locations, possibilities. But eventually, officials say there is no confirmed connection, no clear link, no final answer. So the biggest question stays open. If it wasn't him, then who was moving through this area unnoticed? After the initial wave of investigation, everything slows down. Then it stalls. No arrests, no convictions, no final explanation. And for the families, that creates something worse than closure without justice. It creates uncertainty that never ends. They're left not only grieving their loved ones, but stuck without answers about how they died or why. That lack of clarity becomes its own kind of pain. The location itself begins to carry weight. The area behind the Golden Key Motel becomes a place people avoid, a place tied to something no one can fully explain. For investigators, it becomes one of those cases that never leaves their memory. For the public, it slowly fades but never fully disappears. Because the victims are no longer just names in a file. They become symbols of lives that were already struggling, already fighting battles long before their final moments, and then ended in a way no one can fully understand. Even today, the case remains officially unsolved, and the same questions continue to return again and again. Why them? Why there? And why was nothing seen in time? For women, one hidden ditch, and a timeline that never fully adds up. Some parts of this case are clear. The discovery, the evidence, the location. But the most important parts are still missing. And maybe that's exactly why it's so hard to forget. Not just because of what happened, but because of everything that still isn't known. Because somewhere in that silence behind the motel, the full story is still there, waiting. And the real question isn't just who did it. It's how something like this stayed hidden for so long.